In this video, we are going to discuss the game played between Vidit Gujrathi versus Praggnanandhaa from the FIDE Candidates Chess Tournament 2024. The game is simply phenomenal and you can simply learn many things from this game, and you can implement this game in your tournament games and you can score some heavy points. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So Vidit is playing with the white pieces and he starts the game with 1 e4 and Praggnanandhaa replies with e5. We have knight to f3, knight to c6, and we have the royal piece opening, a very standard opening, a6, bishop to a4, and the main move in this position is to continue with knight to f6, which I'm pretty sure that everyone knows. But in this position, Praggnanandhaa already played a very dubious move, I would say, but a very interesting move in terms of candidates tournament, which is f5 in this position. And now what's the idea of f5? What's happening? Is this move a losing move because it simply opens up the king side, which can really be a double-edged position and can be very risky for Praggnanandhaa. But after f5, the good thing of this particular move here is Vidit is not really well prepared about this particular line because it's such a dubious line. He must have came prepared with something like knight to f6, which is the main move. But playing the move f5, which I'm pretty sure that Vidit knows, but the fact here is that he is not well versed in this line and he has to remember the lines which he used to play. And on the other hand, Praggnanandhaa is simply very well prepared. So after f5, the main move is to play the move d4, which is the best move. But what happens? What is happening in this position? So first of all, if white tries to capture the pawn on f5, which looks like a very natural move, black's idea is to simply push the pawn to e4. And now if you try to play a move like queen to e2, because the knight is actually having no space to go, because on the next move, black's idea is to simply push the pawn and simply capture the f5 pawn. You really do not want to play the move knight to g1 because it's simply a bad move. So if I try to play something like queen e2, not allowing black to capture the knight because the king is hanging. So queen to e7 by black, and this idea is still the same. Black wants to capture the knight. So the main move is to simply capture the bishop, simply capture the knight. Pawn takes, and after knight to g4, black is simply going to play the move knight to h6, developing the knight and also threatening to capture the pawn. And after short castle, takes, not only black is having the bishop pair, but on the same time he's having more space in the center because of the strong pawn on e4, and black is already having a better position. So that's why e into f5 is already a bad move in the position. If you try to play something like d3, now black's idea of playing this f5 move here is to simply capture the pawn on e4, and after takes, knight to f6, short castle, d6, first protecting the e5 pawn, and now after knight c3, bishop e7, black's idea is to simply do a short castle, which makes f5 completely open for black and giving the rook complete chances to play something like bishop to g4 and put pressure on the knight on f3, and black is already having some crazy ideas in the position. So that's the main idea of playing the move f5 in the position. So that's why the best move for white is to play the move d4, simply opening up the center because black's king is already weak in the center. So after d4, black plays the move e into d4, which is the main move. If you try to play something like fe4, trying to capture the pawn and try to attack the knight, white can already capture the pawn on e5, where after takes, the e5 pawn is extremely strong, not allowing black knight to develop so easily, and white is already having a comfortable edge in the position. So fe4 is already a bad move. So we have the move e into d4, capturing the pawn, and here white pushed the pawn to e5. So already, if you try to play this particular f5 move order, your opponent must not have been well prepared, and maybe many of the players would be looking at the f5 move for the first time in their life. And now, just playing the move d4 and now playing the move e5, you really know what's happening, what's the theory, or else finding the move on the board is simply nearly impossible. So after e5, what's the idea? After e5, the idea is to simply not allowing black to develop his kingside pieces, grabbing more space in the center, and the fact here is the d4 pawn can be captured anytime. So white is in no hurry to capture the d4 pawn. So first, white is grabbing more space in the center while playing the move e5, b5 by Praggnanandhaa, attacking the bishop b3, and now playing the move knight to e5. So Praggnanandhaa's idea is to simply capture the bishop in the position. So first knight to d4 by Vidit, bishop b7, simply the idea is to simply develop the pieces, and here Vidit again chopped off the another pawn on f5. So after knight into f5 in the position, Praggnanandhaa already played a very interesting move. First capturing the bishop and now playing the move d6, a very interesting one. So what's happening? What's the idea? After d6, if white tries to capture the pawn in the position, black's idea is to simply play the move queen d7, attacking the knight, and the point here is, if I try to move the knight, I can capture the pawn with the bishop this time, and the point here is, I'm having the bishop pair, open position, my idea is to simply do a long castle, or even I can play knight f6 short castle, and black is undoubtedly the better one, and maybe winning the game. So that's exactly what happens if your opponent captures the pawn. So with it, took a while, like around 20 minutes, and he played the move queen to e2. The idea is to simply capture the pawn, give a check. And here, Praggnanandhaa played the move queen to d7 of taking 7 minutes of thought. So after queen d7, the idea is pretty simple. If white tries to capture the pawn, give a check. Black's idea is to simply move the king. And now rook e8 is coming up. So it's already very hard to play with the white pieces. If you try to do something like short castle, black can already capture the knight and black is winning. So that's the exactly idea. E into d6 is not the best. So we'll play the move e6, pushing the pawn, attacking the knight. The best move in the position, queen to c6, and now bishop to g5. The idea of bishop g5 is pretty normal, not allowing black to do a long castle in the position, keeping the king in the center. Bishop g5, g6, first attacking the knight because I guess e7 was a very deadly move. So g6 first attacking the knight, king and the knight back, and now playing the move h6, attacking the bishop. And here we will play the move bishop to f4. If white tries to play the move bishop to h4, which I guess many people are thinking, like still not allowing black to do a long castle. But the point here is black can already play the move queen e4, attacking the pawn and the bishop. And after bishop move, you can already do a long castle, capture the pawn, and black is already having a fine position. So that's why bishop f4, knight to e7, developing the knight first, c4, and the point here is, like, if black captures the pawn, white is going to play something like knight c3, not even capturing the pawn. And after takes, white can do a short castle in the position, play rook c1, and can generate some heavy counterplay. So it's already a bad idea for black to capture the pawn. So instead, Praggnanandhaa simply pushed the pawn to b4. The point here is covering the c3 square, not allowing white knight to develop on c3. So queen g4, putting the queen at a very nice square. Queen to c5 by black. So what's the idea? The idea of queen g4 was, if black does a long castle, white wants to play the move knight g5. And black can't really capture because of e7, giving a check and capturing the bishop or the rook. So white is winning. So that's the whole idea. That after queen g4, black first played the move queen c5. Because after queen c5, now black can capture castle because of the knight g5. Black is having the extra option of capturing with the bishop. So we have short castle, and now we have the move bishop g7, a good move. Knight g2, long castle, and here Vidit played the move h4. Now what's the idea? Why Vidit is expanding on the king side? Because Praggnanandhaa simply castled on the long side, so why pushing the pawn on h5? So after h4, what's the idea? After long castle, Praggnanandhaa's idea is to simply push the pawn to g5, h5, just push the pawn. So Vidit played the move h4, not allowing Praggnanandhaa to push the pawn to g5, which is a good move. But the best move in this position would have been knight to g5, which is a very interesting move. The point here is, you don't really want to capture with the bishop because it just ruins up your queen side and it would be simply winning for white. So the only way is to capture with the knight. And after knight takes, white can actually push the pawn, give a check, rook d7, pawn takes, queen takes, knight to c4. The point of this trade on d5 here is, the c4 square is now available for the knight, which is optimally placed. And the point here is something like, white's idea is to simply play rook c1, knight b6 is in the air, maybe sacrificing knight on e6, and white is already better. If h5, queen h3, keeping this diagonal open, and after g5, white can already play rook c1, the idea is knight b6, and still if king b8, still knight e3, capturing the pawn. Because in this position, knight e3, the rook is also hanging, so you must defend the rook. And I can capture the pawn because you can't really capture the bishop because the rook is hanging. So you can already sense, so white is winning the game. So it would have been the best if Vidit would have found the move knight to g5, but instead he played the move h4, and now Praggnanandhaa simply moved the rook, because this time knight d5 is not really working, but after takes, pawn push check, the rook is not really hanging. So going back, rook e8, rook d1, bishop into b2, capturing the pawn now, knight d5, capturing the knight, because like after bishop b2 you don't really have many options to continue the game, because black side is to simply push the pawn now and now simply generate a heavy attack on the king side. So it's the best option for Vidit to create as many pieces as possible. So bishop takes, pawn push check, getting some counterplay, bishop e3, knight c4 attacking the bishop, bishop move, bishop to d4, rook to g8, takes, queen to d4. You can't really capture the pawn because of rook b1 and you lose the queen. So bishop to b7 by Praggnanandhaa. A much better move would have been to play the move bishop a, keeping the square of b7 for the queen and try to create some checkmating ideas with on g2. But okay, bishop b7, queen takes, rook takes, and this allowed Vidit to play the move knight to a5 and giving the opportunity of capturing the bishop. If you try to move the bishop, white can already play rook d4. Rook b4 is the idea, a very deadly move. So that's the whole idea. Praggnanandhaa played the move rook to e5, attacking the knight. And here Vidit pushed the pawn to b4. The best move would have been to simply capture the bishop, takes, and like white can go on and play this position. But instead, Vidit decided to play the move b4. And here this simply allowed Praggnanandhaa to play the move g5 in the position. Now it's like already over, black wants to capture the pawn, attack the g2 pawn. So Vidit tried to block the position with h5, which makes the most of the sense. And now g4. h5 is hanging, and now g3 is also threatening. So rook e1, and now already g3 by Praggnanandhaa in the position. And after g3, you can say already black is better in this position, almost winning I would say, because after g3, if you really try to capture the g3 pawn, queen d6 check, and eventually capturing the pawn, and black wins. So we have knight into bishop this time, but already it's too late because now Praggnanandhaa is having the intermezzo with capturing the pawn, giving a check, takes, and now the king is just too much exposed. Queen into b7, the g2 is hanging, so queen f3, and you can just simply count the material. White is having 3 pawns, black is having 4 pawns, and at the same time, the pawn on h5 is also collapsing. So simply rook g5 takes, and you can't really defend both the pawns. So g4 takes, rook to e6, trying to get some counterplay, but simply rook here, capturing the pawn, attack, because now the idea was to simply capture the pawn, but here simply check, and after the move rook f5 check on the 45th move, Vidit decided to resign the game. Because the idea is pretty simple, if you try to move the king, I can happily trade out the rook, trade this pawn with this pawn, and try to push this pawn and make a queen and win the game. So a very interesting one, a very epic comeback by Praggnanandhaa by defeating Vidit with the black pieces by losing the second game against Gukesh, whereas Vidit won the second game against Hikaru Nakamura with the black pieces. So already a fantastic and a brilliant game played by Praggnanandhaa. I personally believe you guys can also try the move f5 in this position. Just study this particular line. I'm going to make a video on this, like how to play this particular opening, because I'm simply impressed by Praggnanandhaa's opening choice and his preparation, level of preparation. And yeah, if you really love this game, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these exciting videos like this because the tournament is still pending, many rounds to go. 5 rounds have been completed, but yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess.